Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Management 36045. Um, this week, I'm gonna lecture on Chapter 11, which is Global Supply Chains. So, just a high-level overview. We want to consider that global economies are they reach all over the world, but can we integrate a global supply chain? Yes, we can have an integrated global supply chain, but this does happen in stages. It happens based upon a business strategy. It just not does not happen organically. It does not happen with accident. You have to have a strategy. You have to have a plan to vertically, or not vertically, to integrate your supply chain. These global sourcing decisions, they're complex and they require input from multiple functions. And of note for this class, the logistic manager must be involved when you're looking at a global supply chain. So, we start with global economics. So, most firms today, you're going to very seldom find a firm that is not impacted by the global economy. I'd say it's going to be almost impossible to find a firm that is not somewhat impacted by sourcing of materials globally, selling to customers globally. It's just the nature of the economy as business has become digitized, as we've adapted to working in a digital e-commerce business society. It's opened up regions of supply around the world, often with lower cost product, often with different innovation than we would have had we grown the product locally. But it also opens us up to customers. So, since we're talking about a supply chain, since we're talking about logistics, it's not just the inflow of material to your business, it's also your outflow to your customer. So, um, when we look at some of the common objectives that, when you go global as an organization, what are some of those common objectives? What are some of those reasons why we go global? Well, we want to increase our revenue. We can increase our revenue by access to new markets. We can increase our revenue by sourcing from lower cost regions. Um, the widget that you're selling that you used to purchase from a supplier in Germany for $5 and you sold for $10, if you can purchase that for $2 from China and sell it for $7, then you're $3 cheaper than your competitor and you can take market share. You can increase your revenue. You can increase your profitability. You can increase your production capacity. And as we just talked about, you can reduce direct cost, which as return, you can lower your cost and you can grow your revenue. So, we talked about that. The biggest reason why when we talk about the global economy and the supply chain, there is the customer facing side of it that is going to come into place. But we must talk about that 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is the supply side. The supply side is where we are more global because we are looking for lower cost. We are looking for access to new capacity. We're looking for access to different types of innovation. And oftentimes we find that by going global. But a tangential benefit of sourcing globally is all of a sudden your product is possibly known more in these countries. So while supply side is the most common reason or aspect of your business that you would go global in, the sales side also does have a global nature to it. So, when you are going global, you do have to understand that there is many more layers that are involved cost-wise on the logistics and warehousing side. So not only is there the obvious cost that it does cost longer or cost more to ship something to a warehouse in Cincinnati from China than it does to ship from Dallas to Cincinnati, but you also consider that shipment from Dallas to Cincinnati takes 3 days. The shipment from Shanghai to Cincinnati takes 3 months because it's coming ocean. So you have to carry more inventory to account for the longer transit, which is more cost to carry. So there's just there's so many different layers you have to consider when you are sourcing globally, when you have introduced the additional echelons that come with global sourcing into your supply side. So, when we look at factors and considerations for not going internationally, advantages, focusing on local market. You can minimize coordination efforts. You have to have less people involved in coordinating shipments because you're bringing in local shipments, not international shipments. Um, cross-functional decisions can be made by small groups of executive managers. That's an advantage. Business is simple when you are local, when you're not international. But some of those disadvantages, your growth is limited to your local market. It's not easy to respond to globally based customers. When you only source locally, you have a local mindset, and when you do have those global customers, it's out of your core competency. And oftentimes, you're not going to be large enough to take advantage of economies of scales. So if we go back to that $5 widget, if you are local, that $5 widget might actually cost you $6 because you're a smaller organization. But if you are global and you're a bigger organization, you can buy it for $4 locally or possibly $2 or $3 internationally. So factors and considerations for, I guess, a multi-domestic. So this is, focusing on the local market is an advantage, minimizing the coordination efforts, and it allows the firm to focus on growth markets while maximizing or minimizing complexity. Disadvantages, it's not scalable and it's not easy to respond to globally based customers. And when we look at the factors and considerations for a truly global enterprise, you're focused on the local market. So that's, that is an advantage. You can still focus on your local market, just you can focus on the international market. But your firm begins to take advantage of global brands and products. Your firm starts to have different alignments. Your firm starts to reach different customers and really kind of shapes what they're going to be based upon that global footprint. Levi's went from being rugged workwear, Western wear, the blue collar clothing in the United States. But then when Levi's went international, it became the brand of America. And oftentimes my colleagues in Europe, they all wear Levi's. That's the blue jeans they wear are Levi's. They love Levi's. And a pair of Levi's is maybe $120 in Germany. It's $38 here. So oftentimes I'll take a couple pairs over that people have asked me to purchase for them because it's Americana. It's an image that they have about our product, and Levi's has that because they are a global player, and they have that different global perception than they do local perception. So, when you look at a global supply chain integration, it's going to require an understanding of the complexity of logistics that go into the global economy. So I talked before, putting something on a truck from Dallas to Cincinnati is much different than, and just because your product is leaving the port of Shanghai does not mean it's made in the port of Shanghai. There's a good chance that it's made in Suzhou or Wuzhou or Wuxi or Ningbo, one of the surrounding cities. So let's say it's made in Wuxi, and I'll just say that because I've been to Wuxi and I used to do business in Wuxi, and it's made in Wuxi. And then, from Wuxi, it is taken by truck to a local train station, and then it's taken on the train the 2-hour ride to Shanghai, and then the train is offloaded at a warehouse, and at the warehouse it's loaded into containers and it's put on a ship, and then it takes a ship from Shanghai to the port of Los Angeles, and then from the port of Los Angeles, that container is maybe put on a truck that's driven to Cincinnati, or it's put on a train that's driven to Chicago, and then at Chicago it's put on a truck that's driven to Cincinnati. So even in the shortest possible method of that global supply chain, it still has the shortest possible is it's trucked from Wuxi to Shanghai Airport, and it's flown from Shanghai Airport to Cincinnati, and from Cincinnati it's put on a truck and driven to the factory. Even at that, it still has 3 or 4 more echelons than a truck from Dallas to Cincinnati. So even at its simplest form, a global supply chain is much more complex than an international supply chain. So I just want you to remember that as we're working through this material. So, um, so managing, and just that highlights that managing the global supply chain is just so much different than managing a domestic supply chain. Um, complexity of logistics systems, they vary significantly in each major global region. So if you're sourcing from Europe, it's going to be completely different than if you're sourcing, if you're going sourcing from Europe to North America, it's going to be completely different than if you're sourcing Asia to North America. And sourcing Asia to North America is different than sourcing Asia to Europe. So there's just different trade partnerships between North America and Europe. We have one trade alignment, but between Asian countries and America, we have the TPP. So just always remember that your international logistics policy coming from one direction is going to be different from another direction, and then even within the same region, the way we handle trade with Korea is different than the way we handle trade with China, which is different than the way we handle trade with Taiwan. So, when we look at these, it's easier to create and operate separate regional strategies than it is to try to have one global strategy. So don't be afraid to have regional strategies: North America, Asia, Africa, Pacific Rim, Europe, Middle East. So duplicate what you can, use the same forms of what you can, because when what you are able to duplicate, you can still take advantage of some economies of scale. You can still take advantage of the same assets. So do duplicate what you can. Use the same systems and processes and assets when you can, but understand that it's not going to be 100% duplication. Growth-oriented firms are going to integrate their regional strategies into a global strategy and try to eliminate redundancy. And as a result, they're going to see benefits. So, back in some other classes, we've talked about third-party logistics providers. We've talked about third-party warehousing providers. If you are, say, a smaller localized firm and you are entering, you're taking a foray into global supply chain and global sourcing, don't be afraid to maybe pay a little extra and hire that 3PL, hire the customs or the freight broker. It may cost you a little more than if you had your own people try to figure it out, but they're the experts and you're going to save money in the long run. Talking about customs, if we start looking at export and import with a national perspective, so international transactions in support of domestic business. So, you just have to understand that when you're bringing goods in from foreign countries, there's always going to be tariffs or there's going to be customs associated with it. There's going to be different clearances that it has to go through. If you're bringing something in from internationally, your supplier is going to have to be CTPAT approved, which is the counterterrorism. And for example, when I was sourcing product in China, their factories had to be completely fenced in, completely secured and monitored, and incoming and outgoing shipments always had to be monitored for counter-terror activity. One thing when you're looking at sourcing globally, I've always found that it's helpful to do business with a foreign company that does have some kind of U.S. presence. So, if you want to save money and buy your products from China or Vietnam or Taiwan, that company doesn't have to have a full-blown manufacturing or full-blown warehousing presence in the U.S. But do they have an import office? Do they have a customer service office? Do they even just have localized sales reps? Having that localized sales rep, having a local import agent from your foreign supplier can make your business operations so much easier. So when you're sourcing internationally, you want to get cost savings, but oftentimes you don't want to go with the cheapest firm. You're going to pay a little bit more for some of those extra people they have, especially if they have people stateside in the US or in Europe, but you're going to save a lot more money in the long run. You're going to have a lot more peace of mind professionally. Firms that are truly global, they're going to employ global brands with limited customization. They're going to operate in most regions. They're going to employ global resources. They're going to have people all around the world. They're going to use integrate reporting systems and planning technology. So they're going to be able to use SAP or They're going to be able to link with you through an EDI, and they have no specific home or parent company that's going to dominate their policy. So if you think about it, Coca-Cola is an American-based company, but it's a national brand, and every country is massive for Coca-Cola. Dow Chemical in the U.S. If you think about Nestle, we think about Nestle chocolate milk. We think about all the Nestle products. They're not American. They're Swiss. Philips. If you think about, you buy a Philips CD player, or Philips. I'm showing my age there. Wow. But if you buy a Philips Electronics, they're actually Dutch. They're from the Netherlands. So, if you truly want to be global, you need to work with global companies. You need to think globally. You need to think strategically. So, that's just a real high level look at global supply chains. If anyone wants to talk further about it, if anyone wants to see additional slides, I'm always free to chat about it. It's a really compelling topic. It really does play in extremely well to logistics. I've done a lot of global sourcing and dealt with logistics in my career, so I'm always here to chat. I'm always here to help. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.